And welcome back here. It's 2 Live now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Hope you're getting a good start to your weekend here. Let's continue with these top stories coming especially out of New York City today. The judge in the hush money payment trial and conviction of former President Donald Trump delaying his sentencing even further. Fox's Rebecca Castor tells you why.
Sentencing for Donald Trump's New York hush money conviction will now take place after voters decide the next president. Friday, Judge Juan Merchan set a new sentencing date for November 26th, after Trump's legal team petitioned to move it until after the election.
I think this is one of the things that may be used on appeal to say that Judge Merchan was actually fair and reasonable to Donald Trump.
Merchan also has to decide if Trump's guilty conviction even stands in light of the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. He'll announce that decision on November 12th. But there's another guilty verdict the former president is also trying to appeal.
This is a long and complicated web.
Friday, Trump attended a hearing in New York on his civil case with author E. Jean Carroll. He wants a new trial after being found liable last year of sexual abuse and defamation in order to pay Carroll $5 million.
I have no idea who this woman is.
Trump's legal issues will likely remain in the spotlight heading into Election Day and heading into the first and possibly only debate with Kamala Harris on Tuesday.
On one side, you're going to have the rule of law. She's a prosecutor, put people in jail who violate the law. On the other side, you have Donald Trump with his over 100 felony indictments.
You've had the Department of Justice right now in this country trying to thwart a presidential candidate, and yet it actually hasn't deterred voters when it comes to Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris is hunkered down in Pittsburgh preparing for the debate, while Donald Trump will hold a rally in Wisconsin on Saturday. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. Former President Donald Trump taking to his social media platform Truth Social in response to the judge delaying his sentence today. This was a lengthy one. I'm going to read it. He says the Manhattan DA witch hunt has been postponed because everyone realizes that there was no case. I did nothing wrong. It is a political attack against me by Comrade Kamala Harris and other radical left opponents for purposes of election interference, and is a case that should have never been brought. Nothing like this has ever happened in the United States of America. It is strictly third world, banana republic stuff. Importantly, the public understands this, and so does every legal scholar, expert, and luminary, including Andy McCarthy, Jonathan Turley, Alan Dershowitz, Mark Levin, Stephen Calabrese, David Rifkin, Greg Jarrett, Katie and Andrew Cherkosky, Ellie Honig, and many others. I greatly appreciate the words, if necessary, being utilized in the decision, because there should be no if necessary. This case should be rightfully terminated as we prepare for the most important election in the history of our country, Make America Great Again. Like I said, a lengthy statement there, diatribe on Truth Social. In the meantime, I got a lot of questions about this sentencing delay, and you probably do too. So let's bring in legal analysts to help us make sense of this, including our friends Jeremy Rosenthal and Robert McWhirter. They join me. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us on this Friday night here. Jeremy, my first question to you is this. Judge Juan Merchan concluded that the sentencing would have a prejudicial effect on the election. It was supposed to be September 18th, just in a matter of days here. So what happens if Trump, say, wins the election and he's President-elect Trump here? Yet another unprecedented moment in American politics and American legal history here. Can you foresee that scenario happening?
If Donald Trump wins the White House, then he's going to get a much lighter sentence. I don't know that any trial judge wants to manage as a probationer the president of the United States. And Judge Merchan appears to at least be able to recognize and read the room, knowing that look, if this man is going to be the leader of our country and the leader of the free world, then he can't really do so in prison, and it's probably impractical. But all bets are off if Donald Trump loses the election. If I'm Donald Trump, that's what I worry about here. But I think the political calculation, obviously very, very rare for a judge to make. But the political calculation here is this. Look, he's not going to be accused of tampering with the election. And Donald Trump detractors should also be probably happy too, because Donald Trump, let's face it, could raise a lot of money on a bad sentence, right?
Sure.
And potentially even appeal that and stay out. So I think Judge Merchan is just saying, look, I'm reading the room here. I'm going to wait until we know a little bit more until I levy this sentence.
So, Robert, to that point here, it seems like Judge Merchan's rationale, is political. He doesn't want anything regarding the election to be prejudicial here. To Jeremy's point, is that pretty rare for a judge to make that determination with that basis and rationale? Yes, we have a presidential election coming up, but he squarely based it off that very fact here, this sentencing delay.
Well, look, this is a unique case. Look, judges read newspapers as well.
Okay.
But in addition to that, Trump's own lawyers have put this up in their pleadings. So that issue becomes not just a judge kind of looking at politics, he's actually evaluating the issues that the lawyers had presented in their papers to him in court, which means it's part of his consideration. So from that point of view, then the judge is making kind of an appropriate determination. And I've found Judge Merchan to be just wonderful. I think he's a very good judge. And I think he's a very conscientious judge. And he realizes the implications of this. I have a slight difference with my fellow luminary here that I think that the judge will impose a sentence even if he is president, but that he'll suspend imposition of it until after his presidency.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I agree with Jeremy. The idea of managing on probation as sitting president, I mean, what do? Have cocktails with the Secret Service and work it all out? It would just be utterly impractical. But I do think, though, that he could impose it, suspend it for 4 years until he's out of the office.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I did not know that that was somewhat of an avenue to go forward here. But to both of your points, judges are not immune from these decisions. Prudent, yes, but political in nature slightly as well here. Okay, let's talk about the sentence itself, whatever it may be, come November the 26th, if that date is fixed or is delayed even further here. I'm getting this question constantly. I mean, not even just from viewers, family, friends. My trainer at the gym today was, what do you think it's going to be? Do you really think he's going to serve prison time? Jeremy, what is it going to be?
Well, again, and to Bob's point, I think he's absolutely right. I think the court can suspend the sentence, start it after the presidential term is over. But from my understanding in New York State, I read a survey that suggested 9 out of 10 people convicted for this offense get probation or community supervision. So that is very likely. However, you've already had a co-defendant in this case, Michael Cohen, who was sentenced to some type of house arrest. I think it would be very impractical to try to put Mr. Trump in prison for this. So if he is going to get a jail sentence, I do think it's going to be something that includes some type of home confinement, which I think is an option in New York State. Okay. But again, I can't underscore this is 100% about what happens in this election, because that will drastically affect the time and the amount of punishment that is levied here, because it's quite possible that you might not be able to suspend a jail sentence necessarily until after the election. You can suspend probation and perhaps start it there. New York's got some interesting other sentencing alternatives. My understanding is New York State will also basically kind of let the judge hit you on the head with a frying pan and say, okay, you're a convicted felon, get out of my life. And I think Judge Merchan, I'm not saying that he's had enough of Donald Trump, but I get it. I mean, Mr. Trump had press conferences every day in the hallway calling him names. Right. So if I was a trial judge, I'd be okay with him out of my life.
Robert, to that point here, so it seems like Jeremy is getting at the fact that whatever the sentence might be, there may be a hint of politics in whatever that determination may be by the judge, because he is the Republican nominee for president, because he could be president yet again. The very nature of that determination is also unprecedented.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear, though. At the time of sentencing, let's assume that he is not president of the United States.
Sure.
And he back to not even being the nominee of nothing at that point. Now, I think that Jeremy has presented the smart money about what's going to happen here. I'm going to postulate a different possibility. Usually criminal defendants And Jeremy and I work very hard with criminal defendants to give a posture after they've been convicted where they're accepting responsibility for their actions. Because at that point, they're trying to get a good sentence. You have to show respect. Donald Trump is unique. In one sense, he has gotten far more consideration than any criminal defendant ever gets. He's not persecuted in the least. In fact, he's been given every consideration. But that being said, his behavior towards the courts, all courts, not just Judge Merchan, and particularly this court, has been abominable. And his behavior alone could, if I was a judge, I would be seriously thinking of putting him in prison for what the statutes allow. I mean, he technically could get up to 20 years. He certainly won't get that. But I would actually think of an actual prison term for him.
He can have 20 years over 34 felony counts in this conviction? That's the maximum?
Well, yeah, what it is you can get 5 per count, but then there's a limitation where you can only go up to 20. So that's just kind of a...
And you think Judge Juan Merchan is going to do that?
No, I don't think he'll give him 20 years.
You think he should, though?
Give him 18 months, 6 months, 12 months. And I think that would be justified given this particular defendant's abominable behavior during the course of this trial.
You think that's justified? I mean, does that track with other defendants who have been convicted on the same thing here?
As we have all agreed, Donald Trump is unique and his behavior is uniquely bad. You do not get even the most hardcore mobs go out and start insulting judges and attacking them during his trial. It's an attack on the system itself. It's an attack on the rule of law. And it's an attack on all of this. We need to have courts that are open, fair, and balanced and have the respect of lawyers and even criminal defendants who get convicted. And Donald Trump's behavior has been horrible.
Okay, but Robert, he wasn't convicted for bad behavior toward the judge. And remember, he was fined to the thousands of dollars for violating gag orders. Remember, Judge Juan Merchan was not under the umbrella of that gag order here. It was those who worked for Judge Juan Merchan and family members of Juan Merchan as well here. No, so I think that's really, really interesting. We'll just have to wait to see. But you guys, what is kind of underlining the entire subtext of this sentencing delay is this immunity question as well. It's interesting that the immunity question has popped up in each of the 4 indictments that Donald Trump is facing here. So we had another date today that was set. That's November the 12th, a decision on the motion to vacate this whole conviction because of that immunity question will be decided on November the 12th. So the subtext of all of this is riding on the immunity decision here. And Jeremy, to my question now, paying hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels during and after the 2016 presidential campaign. Will the judge have to determine whether or not that is a private act as a private citizen or a public act in his official executive capacity here, Jeremy?
Based on my reading of the Trump immunity opinion, no, because when he is a private citizen, you don't even have to enter into that analysis. There is a very problematic sentence or two from that opinion, which potentially was calculated at this case, which says we can't even talk about things that happened in the Oval Office or things that happened that could potentially be towards official acts. So what we have here is you have a small, if you will, infection of this trial. Of course, the trial happened before the opinion, so they didn't know any better. But you have a couple conversations, I believe, with Hope Hicks, which the prosecution brought out that happened in the Oval Office. And at the time, it was good trial advocacy because you're saying, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this man as president of the United States didn't even have reverence for the laws as the president. At the time, it worked. But now, in retrospect, what Judge Merchan has to do is what we call a harm analysis. He has to decide, okay, let's assume for argument's sake, they should never have gotten into the Hope Hicks issue. How bad did that hurt it? Did that undermine the conviction? And I'll tell you this: if I'm Todd Blanche or any of Trump's lawyers, I'm going to say, Donald, it's really bad news that we got a sentencing date too, because if the judge was going to kill this thing on November 12th, he would say, let's hold off and and if we need a sentencing date after that, we'll set it. So I think that gives you a really good indication of where that opinion is going. And again, to Bob's point, just to be clear, I've never told a client, hey, go outside and let's go and see how much we can upset this judge. Donald Trump is both a dream client and a nightmare client at the same time. He's a dream client because he gets in a ton of trouble, and he cannot stop talking.
Right.
And he has enough money to pay you enough, right? But he's a nightmare because you can't control him and you can't turn him off either.
Sure. But my point was.
But yeah.
My point was, to Bob, saying that essentially all the bad behavior we saw Trump display every single day of the trial, you're not convicted on bad behavior. You're convicted of the counts against you.
No, but the court can take in relevant conduct, and the court can absolutely do that. Bob has probably seen this. I've seen this when I'm sitting in trial, and after a hard-fought trial and during the middle of sentencing, the judge says, I saw the look on your face, sir, to your client who's just been convicted. When that victim was up here, the way you looked at them, the way you menaced at them, the way you acted up here, I'm going to make your sentence worse because of your behavior. A trial judge can absolutely take those things into account, and something germane, including those when he sustained the prosecution's motions on the gag order. So there is a little bit here to worry about. That said, I don't think anybody thinks he's going to get 20 years. I don't think he gets 5 years. And if I think he gets 2 years, I think they're going to be home confinement and he's going to be at home watching Live Now from Fox. The worst is going to be for him.
Bob, to that point on the immunity question. Bob, to that point on the immunity question, though, is the Trump legal team in all of these various indictments and trials and hearings and pretrial motions, are they really using the Supreme Court decision on immunity to their advantage? Are they throwing anything at the wall immunity-wise to see what sticks here? And are they doing that in the New York case? November the 12th, Judge Merchan's going to rule on whether or not the immunity decision can factor into whether or not they can vacate the entire hush money conviction.
It's spaghetti on the wall.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're doing.
Okay.
Look, let's not forget the conduct that occurred was before he was president.
Sure.
So how could it be part of his official duty? Now, Jeremy makes a very good point about the conversation with Hope Hicks while he was president. But you got to believe that a discussion about hush money to a porn star cannot be part of a president's official duties. If you could go for historical president, just ask Bill Clinton about that one. So I really think that that's not a strong argument. That argument, I think, is weak in even the other cases, with Jack Smith's case, which actually have to do with actions while he was president. But in this case, it was just, he wasn't president at the time when the actions occurred. So how could it be part of his official duties?
All right. We're going to have to leave it at that. Jeremy Rosenthal, Robert McWhorter, as always, thank you so much for a lively discussion, and have a good weekend. We'll talk soon.
Been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
All right. In the meantime here, let's take a quick commercial break.